Good morning. This is actually the second video that I'm doing today. It is August 1st, and it's 9:50 in the morning as I'm beginning this video. Today's video, well, I'm actually doing over this video. I did a video um, a couple of days ago, um, and it was late at night. It was like 10 something in the evening, and I listened to the video hey, be careful. That's Lily. They just ate and I gave him the little supplements. So she's a little rambunctious right now. But anyway, I, um, I listened to the video after I made it and I made no sense. I looked like I was tired. I just had breakfast and I just fed my dogs and everything. And, so I feel up right now and I thought, you know, do the video over. Well, anyway, last week day, I I was like, house cleaning and listened to this video by his name was what's his name? Embarrassing. It'll probably come to me, but he's a famous Brazilian writer, and he it's controversial, but he does channeling. And there was a move, he wrote over 400 some odd books, and he has this entity, you know, I guess taking over his being and writing, there's a term for that. Automatic writing, it's called, but I don't know. But there was a movie that was made, and regarding him, an autobiography of him. Um, I wish his name would come to my mind. But either way, he did a movie. They had him. They did a movie on one of his books about heaven. And as I was watching, listening to the video and cleaning, I had this, thought that came to my mind, and it was such your spiritual heritage begins with your identity and your origins. Okay, so that is why I need to know who I am and who I'm not. At that time, when I was listening to his video, I was also thinking about things that, because I'm investigating my heritage, and I had this sheet of paper that I had for a couple of years that my mom gave me. It's all typed out. I think it was done on a computer, and I didn't understand the format. It's has all these names and then where they're from and their siblings, but the format of it is a little confusing to me because I don't know 95% of the people that's on it, and so I didn't know who I was looking at, So I called up a cousin of mine whose brother, gave my mom this um, thing on the family tree, and that cousin of mine referred me to another cousin who's actually living in France right now, and she gave me the person's mailing address, and so I typed up a letter and I mailed it to her. And on the letter, also included my email. So in case it was easier for her to send an email versus, what we call snail mail. So, I wanted to give her those options. And she emailed me. And I was so excited to get the email from her. And and I had a lot of questions, and she answered them for me, and she referred me to a database. It's called GinaNet. It's a like a family tree, like here in the States they have Ancestry.com, other things like that. So this one is it's similar like that, and that you could add things. You could put in your own family history in it, and people can check out your genealogies. You could put in photos, um, documents of things. You could do a family tree, and this particular cousin of mine did an extensive information. I mean, I said, wow. And I discovered certain things that I didn't know about. Um, I might have shared in one of my older videos about, I know that my background is ethnically and racially diverse. You come from the Caribbean, that's what you expect. So yeah, I knew about that. But to actually see, I mean, this cousin of mine has the database. She does a specific family branch uh, called in English we would pronounce it Cochran, and then in French they call it Coquerin, something like that. And this family tree is traced back uh, for me 10 generations, and for her, this cousin of mine, would be 11 generations. And she has the name of the people who they married, the dates when they were born, and the date they were deceased, met when they got married, things like that. And to my surprise, that that the family branch for that surname, it goes back up to 1624. Hey, cut it out! Cut that out! God. And they just had their kibble. Okay. Hey, Lily, come on. Let's behave. I'm doing a tape. No back talk. They're back talking now. She's back talking. Okay. So either way, yeah. So she's sitting next to me. Okay. Yeah, mommy loves you too. I'm doing a video now. Okay. So either way, good. But it traces all the way back to 1624. That's 1624. I'm saying. And wow. And guess what else? This particular branch, you know, um, this branch, she has it where they came from before they came to the Caribbean. And to my surprise, this person, his origin, he came to the U.S. He came to the Caribbean with his wife, and the wife is also from the same place as he is. They are from Ireland, and Southern Ireland in the county of Cork. And I was very surprised, and I don't look Irish to you guys. I know that. It was even more surprised because the Caribbean island where my mother's family is from, it's a very French-dominated island, the island of Martinique. It's an overseas department of France, and briefly it had British there for a short time, but then the French took it back from the British. But primarily it's a French place, and so I assumed that all the people there, at least the Europeans there, that I just assumed that they all were French people. But you had people from Ireland who migrated there. It did not indicate in the database what year they arrived, but on that island, the first European colonies went there. I think it's 1645 or something like that. Um, but at least when that ancestor of mine had their first child on the island, it was 16, I think 1658, something like that. And so it was about 22 years after this initial um, Europeans had taken over. It was, what was that, 90 or 150 people that were brought there from France primarily, and they initiated this colony. But it it I was kind of like speechless, like I am now at times. It got me thinking. Uh, Here we can think that we have a particular lineage, and to find out that you may not have the type of lineage that you think you have. Another thing that I learned about this database that I was looking at was, well, I was very eager to find out about my African ancestry. Okay, now now the paper that I received from my cousin, with the family outline, um, I didn't know. It doesn't indicate who's what, you know. And I think I sort of assumed that all the people on this list were all black people, people of color. But most of these people on this list that they have were of European ancestry. Uh, but when I looked on the database on the computer, um, there the information was more specific because it gave you like the person's title. It's another way of saying what their occupation was. Um, and so at one particular point, let me see if I can find that. Yeah. I did like an outline for myself, a quick review. Let's see here. Okay. Um, this one particular, yes, I was, once I got in the database, I wanted to find, okay, this guy's coming from Ireland with his wife. Where is my African ancestry? And I also, in my spirit journey, wanted proof of my African ancestors being slaves. I want to know definitively, not because what they say in the history books. I want to know me. Okay, so I was going through this database in detail, and I found her, and put a name to her. Her name was Delphine Bond. Bond spelled B as in boy, O, N as in Nancy. Delphine Bond was born in 1832, and she was a slave, you know, and she had 10 children. And you know who she had the children with? Well, she had a child with that particular ancestor, this Cochrane fellow, whose ancestors came from Ireland. But this the she had children with this man, and that's the beginning of my black ancestry with this family. Okay, and I was very excited about it. When it said, typed in "ne," that means that's spelled N as in Nancy, E. That means born. So born esclava. That's esclava is a slave. You know. So I was like, oh my goodness. And this is it's like bringing, as I said, bringing the pieces back, taking the past, and then bringing it together with your present. And that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to know who I really am and who this person was. I wanted to find out about my African ancestry. And so that was her name. And she was born in 1832, and she had children with this man. And the man was and this particular ancestor. He was born in 1819, and his name was Henri Matthew Cochran. And they actually married. Could you get this? They actually married in November 20th, 1900. So I said, this is something. And I have to give him honor for that. He is my direct ancestor, and he did marry the woman. But you know what else about him? That and again, it's history, and you may not have to like what history tells you, but see, I respect the truth. I respect history. That which is true. He um he had two other women also. Well, not necessarily at the same time, but he had families with three different women. The first woman that he had a child with was actually the the ancestor of my cousin. Okay, so this particular cousin, the one that's living in France, and then I have another one living in the Bronx. Both of those two cousins have a closer relationship, genetic heritage, because they come from that branch of the family that that different woman, not from Delphine Bond, who I just mentioned to you. It was another woman, and that particular woman was a European. And then two more generations of an African, former slave, got introduced to their family. That's where their branch was from. So even though we're both black people, we don't share the same um, black heritage, the ancestor. So it was an assumption. I assumed because they are black heritage and that they're from this particular family, that it was what made us family was that black ancestor, but it's not. So it's really interesting. So again, this is it's putting um, knowledge to a family history, and not just because you feel or you assumed. So I mean, this is what I assumed. But we have different black relatives. We don't share the same ones. But either way, getting back on track with this man Henry Matthew Cochran and Delphine Bond, that they had 10 children together, and that he did have again two other women outside of, yeah, that's what I was going to say, two other women outside of my you know great grandmothers, that the first one he married was from the branch that my cousins came from. She died in her early 20s. She didn't live long. She had two children with them, and then she died at a very early age. She was only 20 something, in her early 20s when she died. And then there was the second woman, um, another branch, and then they didn't have. They might have had one set of children, maybe two or something like that. Not that many, but no descendants after them. That branch died out very very soon, and then it was my branch, and it let's see, maybe 4 years. Let's see, that second branch that died out. They had, let's see, this woman had died, and then 4 years after her death, did he marry Delphine Bond? Okay, so it's interesting. I assume that second woman also was a Caucasian, a European. So the first two women, they died before Delphine Bond. Most likely they were European women, and then comes my direct ancestor, and he marries her um, 4 years after the second woman died. So she's the third one, and I think again, I shouldn't be assuming again because this is probably going to prove myself wrong, but what could have happened was that with the other women around, and if they were Caucasian, that to marry, to marry them would have been it would have been problematic. That you had the other women, then this third woman. Um, so maybe he had to wait until they both, both died. Um, wait a minute. I think Delphine Bond, I think she was the last of them to have, when she started having children, the others already had their children already. So she was the last one that he started a family with. And um, he married Delphine. He was 81 years old. So I also speculate um, that he knew he was dying, and that I guess one thing I heard in the history that if you have illegitimate children, they cannot inherit. So I guess after the death of those other women, and then you know, the year that he married her was the year that he actually died. So he knew he was dying most likely. He's 81 years old, and so I guess to help, ensure that those 10 children of his from that union have some type of inheritance. So he married her, But again, it was a big gap, at least with the other women, because his first wife died at a very young age, and then he's having children with the second woman. But I'm not sure whether he married her. I have to look closely at that. But anyway, there was these big gaps, and but he finally, I mean, better late than never, I say. He married her, and most likely he was a slave owner. Um, I don't I don't know whether she was owned by him. I don't know, because she has a different last name, Bond. So I don't know, but it's interesting, and it is a part of history. So that's why I'm sharing with you guys on YouTube. And it also indicated on it Delphine's parents, and his name was Ismond Bond. That was her father, and he was born a slave, and he was born in 1811. And the mother of Delphine Bond, her name is I guess it's pronounced Agatha Methane. She was also born a slave, and she was born in 1798. And then the next generation before them, their predecessors, okay, this is interesting. At this level of the genealogy, okay, he's the only male. Ismond Bond is the only male um, slave mentioned, um, but the generations before them, it's only women. Okay, so his mother's name, Ismond Bond's mother's name was Victoire, and it just says that she had died before 1833. So she was born in the 1700s. And as for Agatha Methane, her mother, her name was Martha Rose, and she was born a slave. And she was born 1782 to 1848. Okay? And what I thought was interesting was that when you get to that level from the 1700s, back, or the early 1800s and back, that I guess the type of slavery was so intense, um, and I guess as you might have heard in history, that they were breeding the slaves, and so they had a woman, and you don't know who was impregnating her. That maybe that's why they didn't have the name of the father on both of them. There's no mention of father. So I'm wondering whether this was again an ugly part of our history, that we had a woman, a slave woman, and she's being forced to have children, and it's unfortunate. So I had my list here. I'm looking at this list here. See, that's me. See that? Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you. That to give them honor. And I was always wondering who these slaves were. Again, this is just one small branch of my family, and this is just on my mother's side, not my mother's father's side, and then not even on my my father's people's side. And but I typed it up like this because I wanted to pray. It sounds silly, but I want to pray for them or put them in my prayers, and that God, if their spirits are still alive somewhere, that they're not forgotten, and that I'm finding them. I'm finding their name, so I could invoke their name in giving them honor. That's why I typed it up, and it's used, for a focal point if I decide to pray for them or on their behalf. And this is a part of my spirit journey. Oh, another thing I wanted to talk about regarding spiritual journey was that, like, as you know, I'm searching. I'm searching for what is true, and just like I want to know what is true about my personal heritage. Um, Same thing with religion and God. And one thing I learned about my family heritage is that, like we have names, surnames, and some of my families, we're not sure what the name, what the surname is. Like for example, grandmother, my grandmother's last name, we're told is Cochran, but we're told that that was her married name, and that her um, maiden name was Petit. Petit means small or smalls. And so I was talking to another family, a sibling about that. And because I referred to him to that database that I found online that a cousin had referred me to. And he said, that may not even be our ancestor, because the last name is this and that says something else. It could be someone else's ancestry. So why I mention this is because, if you have a history and you have a document and it's saying one thing, and then you get something else, so you start to question. I do believe that um, that is her maiden. Cochran is a maiden name. She did it because we're relatives on her side. That was always my understanding, and they knew each other too. These cousins knew her, this grandmother of mine, and it was never mentioned about the father's side. Even though we were always told that he was a Conqueror, but it was always the lady that we knew of being, um, I don't know, but it just got me thinking. If we don't know, um, if what's on paper is saying one thing, even something like a surname, it was, I think, on a marriage document, and they had to indicate, oh, what is the person's maiden name, and they're saying this one particular thing. And so you feel, well, don't someone know? Doesn't someone know what the maiden name or last name? But sometimes in history, we might be ashamed of certain things. Okay, the Cochran or the Cochran family of Martinique is a very old, very established family. So she wanted to be associated with that name. And you did have a lot of you know relationships, to put it nicely, but they weren't legally married. We had a lot of cohabitation, and again, a child born out of wedlock, um, you you know they may not want to give the person their last name. It's not like now, you have a lot of people who are cohabitating. They have children, but they may not be married to the parents may not be married, but the father does acknowledge the child and has it on the birth certificate that they're the father, and so the child inherits the last name. But at this time, I speculate that she took she put the document as her having his last name, that the father's last name was actually one thing, and and that may not have been the case. And so it could cover her identity as not being born legit. So I speculate again, if I'm wrong, if I discover that there's an error with it, but I don't think so, because like with his family, with the Cochran family, they're a well-established family, and if he was actually that person, the one of the siblings, his name would be on at least the first name, because on the database it has all the children of these generations, the men, and there's no one by the name Raphael, no one. So I I gathered that he was a small, a petite, and she was the Cochrane, and they had a child. The child took the mother's name, and so to cover her not being of legitimate birth, she said that her father's name was Cochrane. You know, so so I think that's what happened. But how this is tied in with the spiritual component, that this the whole point of my doing this channel is about discovery, and I want to discover what my spiritual heritage is. Who is God, and where do I come from? How did I come about on this planet? This whole human being, where we come from. You have many different religious traditions, and there always seems to be like a common thread in all of them. And I like going on YouTube and learn about what they call alternative history, and you learn about societies that are, 9,000, 11,000 years old, according to these documentaries. You see these evidences of these humongous size stone monuments. They made mention of some of these places. There's one called Puma Punku. It's in Bolivia, and it's 17,000 years old, these ruins. And then there's a place called at the Gulf of Cambay, India. It's an underground city. I guess a city that got flooded, and it's underground now. And that's supposed to be 9,500 years. And they have these, these stones that are of a material that is so hard that the only thing in our modern technologies to cut this stone is with diamonds, and they showed it pristine cut marks and intricately done, and so they want you to believe that the schools, they teach you that we're just a couple of thousand years old, and no, I mean biblically we're just a couple of thousand years old, but yet you see all these technologies, They were supposed to be living in caves, 20 something thousand years ago, but you see all these artifacts, and you have to explain them. And I'm slowly starting to think that, is that truth about, is this a possible truth that you had beings, and they communicated with modern man and taught you certain technologies. I'm starting to think that that's possibly, true. That you cannot just get something out of nothing. It doesn't, things don't just pop up out of thin air. There's something that has to be introduced into a society to bring about change, whether it's a genetic change in our appearance. We have all different types of people, you know. Most people in the world look like people from Africa or India, a dark skinned race, you know. And then you have all these other new people. Things just don't change overnight, Like even what they call what do you call it? Evolution. And it has to be in increments, small increments. When you have like a big step, that means that something caused it. It wasn't just by chance, a genetic chance, not overnight. And not with a whole group of people. So I know that, I mean, I have strong feelings that what we know in history, what we're being told, is not accurate. There's a lot of pieces missing. And I'm starting to think that some entity, whether it was from the heavens or whether it's called what you call spirit beings. You have people that what you call people who channel or what do meet with the mediums. These are people who tap into what they call other energies or other dimension, whatever you want to call it. They get this information, and then they're able to write it down. They're able to tell people. It influences them, and then they could create change. They could, you had people who we call it developers, inventors. That's the word I'm really looking at. Inventors. And when you question some of them, they 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 they, they document that some of them did meditations, things like that. They're tapping into other dimension, other realities, whatever way you want to call it. And these other realities had information. And I guess they selectively give them what the information that they want to give at that time, you know. And so I think with these technologies that maybe they got this information from higher energies and then were able to perform these things. And I'm also wondering whether, like with the Bible character Moses or even Abraham, I was thinking about them, and I started thinking that, hey, maybe Abraham, maybe he did meditations, or and and and, and spirit entity talked to him, and it can happen generationally. Abraham, then it was Isaac, then it was Jacob, and some of these spirit entities could know certain futuristic events. And you hear people who learn about certain things that are going to happen in the future. They may not be 100% right, but sometimes they get it right. And so I'm wondering with Abraham and his descendants, whether or not they too tapped into that realm. And then with Moses, he definitely had someone talking to him. He went to the mountains and he prayed with this spirit being, and that miracles were performed. So maybe this is again one of these things. one of these mysteries, and how did the ancient Hebrews know about certain dietary things, about, what we call hygiene today. They knew about, certain practices that kept them healthy, you know, and these were just regular people from Iraq. That's where they started from, the ancient Hebrews. They're ancient Iraqis, and this selected group of people had achieved these technological things. And again, the ancient Egyptians also were very advanced, and they were more advanced at that time than ancient Hebrews. These were people who they were migrated to different parts of the world, back and forth. So it's only when they really became a nation, then they started building more of the technologies and things like that. But the nations that they live around were very advanced. So I'm just wondering, okay, that that maybe with these scientists of today, and uh, that they're tapping into this higher knowledge through various means. And so, and part of this spiritual journey is to analyze what this could be. Is the Bible, is this God, or is this one of these spirit entities, and having them write certain things down? Again, I don't know what the truth is, but I know the truth is out there, and it's my spiritual journey to discover what it could mean. So, thank you again for listening, and let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up, tell a friend about me. Enjoy the rest of your day.